Hey everybody, welcome back. This is the last philosophy video. In this video we'll be discussing, or I guess you'll be listening, I'll be talking about postmodernism. Okay, postmodernism, I have to be right up front, is my least favorite of all the philosophies. That's why it's coming last. But it does have some really cool ideas within it. Okay, so let's knock out the first three things: metaphysics, epistemology, and axiology, and we'll talk about it a little bit more. Okay. For metaphysics, that's what's the nature of reality? Okay, what's real? For a postmodern person, you can't know. And this is why. I challenge you all to think of something right now. Go. All right, did you think of something? Can you name it? I'm sure every single one of you can name it. Postmodernists believe that you cannot have a thought without the words to express that thought. So between us and reality lies language. Okay, language is the be-all and end-all of postmodernism. So for metaphysics, you can't know reality because you have to use words to describe it, and those words are more often than not controlled by others. An example of this would be the national political debate we have time and time again about abortion. If we talk about abortion as killing innocent babies, the vast majority of Americans are against that. If we talk about instead the right for a woman to have sovereignty over her own body, the vast majority of Americans are for that. Thus, if you can control the terms of the debate, you can control the outcome of the debate. You can control what people will think about. You can't control what they think, but you can control what they think about. So, for metaphysics, you can't know reality. Okay? For epistemology, how do we come to know something? It's through language. That's why language is everything for a postmodern person. In this class, I'm literally defining these philosophies for you. I am controlling the language in this classroom. Even though we're not in a classroom, you could be in your jammies right now. But as the source of power, it could be argued that I control the class and the language used therein. Thus, I control what we think about. For axiology, what is of value? From a postmodern perspective, they pretty much throw out all the traditional measures of value because they see them as serving the elite of society. So what's left is for us to struggle to define value. And honestly, we're just going to skip that. Postmodernism truly does give me a headache trying to figure out all this out. Although, they do have a really good idea here about the importance of language. For the curriculum, language, and political science, social studies, that kind of stuff. The name postmodernism means after modernism or after the scientific era. Postmodernists believe that the rise of science and logic to be the coin of the realm throughout the world has served some people and disserved others. That there are other ways of knowing that are negated in the current paradigm of logic ruling all. Okay, things like intuition. They say history is written by the victors. What about the loser's point of view? Something to consider from a postmodern perspective. Throughout history, this was a knock on perennialism, if you remember. Most of our cultural touchstones were written by white European guys or at least wealthy guys, wherever they are. Not much produced by women that have survived the test of time. The postmodernists would point to that as an instrument of control, and you need to fight against that. So, there's some words you need to know about postmodernism. Okay, one is meta-narrative. It's M-E-T-A, meta, and then narrative, N-A-R-R-A-T-I-V-E. So it's all one word, meta-narrative. The purpose of postmodernism is to empower people. Right? It's all about speaking truth to power and deconstructing the meta-narrative. A meta-narrative is kind of the overall kind of set of rules and social controls within which we all live and operate. If this was a face-to-face class, typically what I would do is I would point to somebody. Like I know I interviewed Jared, so if let's say I say, "Hey Jared, can you close the door?" We all know that because I'm the teacher and Jared's the student, that was a command. Jared's only response is okay, or yeah, sure. If Jared actually answers the question and says, no, can't do it, everyone in the room would gasp because, like, whoa, that's breaking the rules. That kind of unstated set of rules within which we work is the meta-narrative. And from a postmodern perspective, they always, meta-narratives, they always serve the interests of the elite and powerful. They never serve the underclass. So it's the purpose of education to deconstruct that, to take apart that meta-narrative and show the students the systems of control within which they work. And thereby, they're able to attack them. And there's some legitimacy to this approach. It just makes my head hurt, especially the you can't have access to reality. I have a problem with that, especially as a former chemist. I remember learning about postmodernism in my doctorate, and the professor was going on and on about there's no such thing as a truth. There's no single thing that we can all agree on. And I stood up and argued, "Oh, you're wrong. The speed of light was 186,000 miles per second, or whatever it is in meters. And that's a universal constant. I don't care about anything else." And I thought I was pretty clever, and then she basically told me to shut up and sit down. Such is the power of a professor. For thinkers in postmodernism, there are many thinkers, and postmodernism, because they're constantly attacking language. If I say you, Joe Blow, are a postmodernist, a lot of times they'll kind of react to that. So we're not gonna really talk about who are postmodern educators, because they're hard to identify actually, and a lot of them would resist being labeled such. They would resist any label. But we will talk a lot about the weaknesses of postmodernism, because ironically, and this is something I really kind of am bothered by, because postmodernism places such a huge emphasis on language, you would think that their writings would be accessible to everyone. You know, they would write in a way that people could easily understand. But I'm here to tell you, I've read postmodern literature time and time again. That is some tough sledding, man. Their use of verbs and terms that no one else on the whole world would use make it inaccessible to all but the most highly educated people. It's almost like you have to be in the club to know that to get the decoder ring to understand what they're saying. And I think that's a legitimate knock against them. You know, if they're talking about the use of language to control how people think, they're using language in such a way that it obscures what they're trying to say. The language they use stands between them and the common man or common person in trying to reach some understanding. The other major knock against postmodernism is that they're always against something. They're always tearing apart something, deconstructing the meta-narrative, and they don't have an alternative to offer forth. They just know what they're against, and very seldom do they offer a positive substitute for whatever it is they're critiquing. And in a whirlwind, those are all 11 philosophies. Woohoo, we are done. I'll record a message or send you something about the philosophy paper and the philosophy test later. But for now, I'm going home. Bye.